Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome, everyone. I am your host, Joe Pavlansky, pop culture historian, writer for Scary Monsters magazine, and curator of the Crypt of Classics. Co-hosting, as always, is the maestro of mail-order mysteries and owner of houseoftheunusual.com, the intrepid Eddie Guevara. Today's special guest is Theresa Mazza. Theresa, how are you today?
I'm great, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And for everyone out there that doesn't know you, tell everyone a little bit about yourself, what you're about, maybe some stuff that you like to collect, stuff, TV shows or movies you enjoy watching. Just give a little rundown about you. Talk yourself up.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to say, thanks for having me. This is my very first podcast ever, so I'm really excited about that. Eddie's a good friend of mine, asked me to come on the show. And I live in North Jersey. And TV shows have always been something that, I think mentally I've collected. I didn't grow up watching a lot of cartoons or playing a lot of video games or any of those type of things, but TV was my specialty. So I'm really excited to chat about our top 10 this evening.
Awesome. So we are going to get into the top 10 TV shows. Before that, Eddie, what's new on House of the Unusual? Any new products out there? Anything new and exciting that you have up for sale?
Well, the last thing I could say is I hope people keep catching up with the last two products that are only going to be available, and it's a limited run, which is a 7-foot Frankenstein from the comic books, the green version, and then that haunted house barometer. After that, they're sold out. Other than that, we're working on a couple of new products, and we should be launching Go Ship Times early January.
Awesome. So sounds good. So
that's good.
Everybody out there, get your move on to get those products before they're gone forever. Because once they hit the secondary market, they'll be worth millions. So get them now. Yeah. All right, let's get into our top 10 TV shows of all times. Now, as we discussed when we did our top 10 movie list, I know as for myself, my top 10 today will probably be something different tomorrow and the next day, depending on, how I'm feeling. But usually when I was doing the list, I think my top 3 are pretty solid and aren't going to really move from there. But my other 7 in my honorable mentions, they'll probably move around depending on how I feel, that day. So we'll get it started. We'll go around the room here. We'll start with Eddie and then Theresa, and then I'll finish up, and we'll start with our number 10 right now. So Eddie, what's your number 10 top TV show?
Okay, the first, now remember, we're starting with number 10 here. This is a show that even if I don't like it, I still am forced to watch it because the wife has it on 24/7. Okay, it's called Live PD. Now it's called Live Rescue. I really don't like the show, but that's my 10 because I'm forced to watch it. So I don't have much to say about the show other than that. It reminds me of the 1970s Emergency. If you remember Emergency, they had the fire engines coming, and every week they had a different, or every day, and it was called Emergency, and that's what it reminds me of. But that's number 10.
So it's a doctor show?
No, Emergency was a fire department. It was a fire department. They were always like rescue. Same thing as what they have now called Live Rescue, but it was done as a drama. In fact, I think that recently they have a new show called oh my gosh, I forget the name of it, but it deals with like emergency things like that, fire department or Chicago. Is it Chicago Fire? I think it's called.
I don't know. What's Live Rescue? Is that with just police, or do they do police, fire, and...
No, Live Rescue is a combination of police and fire department.
Okay.
So it's basically people, and it's kind of the same thing as Live PD, but they just changed the name, I think.
Okay, cool. Theresa, what is your number 10 to start off the list?
My number 10 is The Office.
Oh, I love
it. You can imagine what comes after this, but I love The Office. It's in my top 10, and I had to put it somewhere. So
I love The Office. I've probably watched it all the way through probably 7 times.
Yeah, it's like absolutely fantastic. I think it's honestly better than the British version. Did you watch the British version?
You know what? I tried. I think I made it to like the second episode, and I went back to the American version and watched it again.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Scott, there's only one Michael Scott, right? Even though Ricky Gervais, who is a phenomenal comedian and actor, by the way, and actually another one of his shows is in my top 10. It's probably one of his newer ones. I don't know if you guys know what it is or not, but we can get there later. I mean, he's just a comedic genius. But I mean, Steve Carell as Michael Scott, there's just no comparison.
Absolutely. And I have that on my list too, and we'll talk more about that when we get down. But my number 10 is it was tough to figure out a number 10, but I had to go with the Monsters, the original run of the Monsters. That's just, to me, that is just one of the classic, you know, kind of, I guess, horror sitcoms, if you will. You know, it ran from 64 to 66, and it, you know, Herman Munster is just, you know, an icon in the horror community. So that it just, you know, there was, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys have seen the Monsters, or at least heard of them, and people out there, if they haven't seen them, they've heard of them. But you know, you always had some comedy in there. You had some, you know, family values. So there was some, you know, learning in there as well. So it was just, to me, it's just an all around, you know, great show. So that would be my number 10.
Well, it's very fitting for this time of year.
Absolutely. And I've been catching up on some of them now this last month. So, all right, number 9, Eddie, what do you got for number 9?
First, when you said the Monsters, I'll mention in my list there, but I've got 3 sets of the entire series. I love that show.
Really?
I was just gonna ask, how is the Munsters different than the Addams Family?
You know what? Here's the difference. The Addams Family came in around the same exact time as the Munsters, and I think it was NBC or ABC, whichever one first aired it, and they did it to compete with the Monsters and the popularity of the Monsters. If you look at both shows today, they're equally funny, but the Addams Family could be a little bit on the boring side.
But really? You think so?
I mean, if you watch the Monsters, like I did the entire series, one after another, like I took a week or two to watch it, and you watch the Addams Family, it's hilarious, but you kind of like, okay, it's more funny to see the Monsters, you know?
You know, the Addams Family is more of like a
cult classic.
Yeah, well, it's like it's more slapstick humor, and it's different. You know, you don't really have any of the, you know, values or anything. It's just a straight comedy show, whereas the Monsters, they're more of like a you could almost kind of picture them as like a real life family, but you know, we're different. Whereas the Addams Family, they're just, you know, totally on the wild side. So, and yeah, they both came out. They both, you know, came out in 1964 and ran to 66. Addams Family came out in September or April, I believe it was. September. What did they run? Yeah, September. They came out September 18th, so a few days before the Monsters premiered, September 24th.
I'll tell you one thing, man. It's really hard to do this top 10 list because there's so many great shows, and you know, and you find yourself like, which one do you like more than the other? You know.
Well, that's why I said, you know, tomorrow it'll be different.
I'll give my second one, number 9. I would say would be Star Trek. I mean, I like the show. Growing up, I was more into Lost in Space, and you know, I'm going to put Lost in Space in the same scenario. And Lost in Space was, I think, more generated towards kids, and Star Trek more adults like. But the moment I got married, I spent the entire first year of marriage watching Star Trek on a daily basis, and I really got into the show. But then again, when you watch Lost in Space, if you run, the first season was okay, the second season is phenomenal. The third and fourth season is like, okay, you know, but it's that would be my number 2, Star Trek. Number
great.
9.
Awesome. That's definitely a good one, and also made my list. Theresa, what do you got for number 9?
So yeah, number 9 for me was Breaking Bad.
You know what? I have never seen that.
Oh my God, you have not?
I I might be the only one in this world that's never seen that.
I haven't either, but I
Oh,
heard it's
thank
really
you.
good.
Oh, it is. It's unbelievable. It's so good. I don't even want to. I don't want to say anything about it. I don't want to spoil it for you guys.
Now I remember. Oh, what was it on a I can't remember which show it was on, but somebody said that they were go. It was on another comedy show. I can't remember if it was a cartoon or if it was regular, but they were going to watch Breaking Bad in reverse, so that it's a what is it, a reformed drug dealer who becomes a teacher or something like that.
Right, a reformed drug dealer who becomes a I think he was a school teacher. He was it was like a chemistry teacher.
Yeah, who overcomes cancer and then becomes a school teacher, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, so you know the premise already for the most part. But...
Yeah, I know the premise. I never, for some reason, I never got around to watching it. And didn't they do a spin-off or something like that? Better
Call Saul. I didn't actually get into the spin-off though. I don't know. I see. That this could be obviously a whole conversation. Are the spin-offs ever as good as, or the original?
Right.
And that's a tough call. Some people some people, I think it's just a matter of wanting to hang on to a show when it's over.
Yeah.
When a show ends, it's really hard to get over that. It's like a death.
I think we've done that many times with The Office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So my number 9, I have Eddie's favorite, The Addams Family. I grew up, with in the 90s with I seen the movies before I actually seen the TV show, and actually before the TV show I got more into like the comics and the comic strips, and then the TV show, and I absolutely love the TV show. I'm going back now. Actually, this week I started rewatching it because it's been probably a good 15 years or so, maybe 10 years since I've actually watched it. But I love everything about the Addams Family. I really enjoy. I haven't seen the new. I think they did a new movie or something like that. A computer generated movie, maybe.
A cartoon. They did a cartoon, I think.
Or a cartoon. Yeah, I haven't seen that. I don't know if I really want to because I'm more stuck on the originals. So that is definitely my number 9. And like I said, my number 9 and 10 could honestly really change up, I guess, as the months go by and the days go by, just depending on my mood there. But those are kind of two ones that I really, right now this month, I guess, because it's Halloween, that I really enjoy.
It's funny that you said that. When David Harvesat knew that they were doing this movie, he got in contact with the originators of the Addams Family and the family line that actually owns the rights to that stuff, and he purchased the rights for the Uncle Fester light bulb. He sells them like crazy on Amazon, and he purchased the rights not for now, forever, like until. Oh, really? Yeah, he owns the rights for that, so he's the only one that can have the Uncle Fester light bulb, even though it was made in the 60s, and today the original probably goes for like $300-400. I have an original, but he makes a new remake of it, and they had the cartoon version of Uncle Fester on it. Nice. Okay, my number 8. We're going now for number 8.
Number 8.
It's something that I'm sure all three of us have watched at one time or another. Friends. Now,
yeah.
Friends it's a funny show. I like Friends. I enjoy it. I watch it whenever I can. I don't own it. I mean, I never bought the DVDs or anything on it. But Friends is a funny show. I mean, I like the one. My favorite was the one with Ross when he shines his teeth and they were too white and they were glowing in the dark. That's one of my favorite episodes.
Was that the same time he got that spray tan?
Yeah. It was hilarious. That one really made me laugh.
You know what? I am not a fan of Friends. I really, the only time I watched it was with some friends or with my wife. But there's one episode that always stuck out with me was when Ross kept catching people having sex in the anthropology department of the library.
Oh yeah,
because nobody ever went to the anthropology book. And then didn't he try to? He set up like a sting operation or something for them? Or
that was funny. You're right.
Because nobody ever went there. That's the only one that I really remember of it. But Teresa,
Friends.
what's your number 8? What do you got?
Oh, I was just gonna say Friends has made such a resurgence, by the way, with like millennials slash Gen Z
Has
this
it
year.
really?
Yeah, they love Friends. Like I have 17-year-old cousins and they'll talk about Friends. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this show was on. And I was a lot younger when it was on. I think it was the 90s, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wasn't
I
at
think
the
it was.
age where I could have been living in New York and experiencing that yet, but it's just so interesting how how some of these shows have sort of become so memorable to a completely new generation.
Yeah,
Awesome.
my daughter Diana actually went to the place where she took some pictures in the couch.
Oh, the
in New York.
pop-up?
Yeah.
Yeah. The pop-up at the Central Park. Yeah, that's been, and it's all for Instagram, guys. That's what everyone's doing, right? That's
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's drawing it in. So my number 8 actually, and this kind of goes hand in hand with Friends because it's around that time frame, Sex in the City. And as a woman, I cannot let that not be in my top 10. That show was ahead of its time. I swear, if you watch any of them now, they are, it's still the same issues, no offense, that we go through with men. So
I
very
figured that
relevant.
would be Eddie's number 1.
What? That's Eddie's number 1?
No.
That's what I would figure.
No, I never actually watched it. I got to be honest, I never watched that show.
I never have either. I mean, my wife watches it constantly, but I can't. No, I can't bring myself to.
Oh, it's a classic, and they've just celebrated, I think, 25 years or something like that this year. So
That show was on for quite a while, wasn't it?
yeah, it had a bunch. I had like 10 seasons on HBO, and that's like, when HBO was sort of new, and like it was kind of like the network that like allowed cursing and obviously like nudity and stuff. So, at least from my perspective, so it was like ahead of its time in a way.
Believe it or not,
Awesome.
HBO Home Box Office, it was called. In 1968, when I was a little kid, I used to have HBO. They're not new. They've been around a long time.
Really?
Then it was replaced by Showtime. And then they had some type of contraction, which was kind of funny. You had a box that was the size of a shoebox that would go on top of your television. And for $20 a month in the 70s, you could get a thing called Wameka Home Theater, WHT. And they had a little antenna on it, no bigger than maybe a pencil case, and you were able to get this, which makes me today wonder, why do they have such huge, when you want disc, if you want this, you have to have those huge satellite antennas, when back then in the 70s, they had a small little antenna, and you could get it. No, HBO's been
I'm looking at it now. It says they launched November 8th, 1972. I didn't think they were around that long.
When I was a kid, see, in New York City in 1960s and 70s, you had cable. You can't watch a television in New York with a regular antenna because of all the buildings. So I had cable in 1968. It was called Teleprompter Cable TV. It was in Northern, because I used to live in Washington Heights, and I grew up in Washington Heights. And then Southern, like when you went past Harlem, it was called Manhattan Cable TV. So they always were around. I mean, a long time.
Okay.
So anyway, go ahead. Sorry, Teresa, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm done. That was my
Okay.
number 8.
My number 8 is it's actually a cartoon, and it is something that kind of really shaped my childhood, and I was thinking of putting it, higher on my list, maybe around number 5 or so.
Sex in the Neighborhood?
Yeah. Yeah. It's G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, the original cartoon that ran from 83 to 86. When I was, growing up in the 80s, I was a huge, and I still am a huge G.I. Joe fan. And it, as a lot of young boys in the 80s that grew up watching G.I. Joe and playing with the toys and running around, outside, playing Army and all that, it kind of shaped me to, when I graduate high school, to join the military. So it played a huge part in, who I became, after school. Because, all through school too, that's all I wanted to do was join the military. And it stretches back to, growing up watching G.I. Joe, playing with the toys. And that was, consumed basically my whole childhood. So that is my number 8.
One thing that's interesting when you say G.I. Joe, I actually came across 2 great finds a couple of years ago. One is the John Glenn space capsule the GI Joe version of it. And if I tell you this, you're gonna cry. I got it for $3. Goes for several hundred.
Oh man.
And I also purchased this I wanted as a kid, and my mom wouldn't buy it for me. It was $4.95 in the 70s. But it's The Intruder, the enemy of GI Joe.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that it's a strong guy. It's kind of funny though, because I know a person that actually looks like the cartoon, like the thing. And I told him, I said, please don't get mad, but I got to show you this character. And he goes, oh my God, because he has a beard the same way. But it was a little strong guy that you push a button in the back and his head would turn to the right and the two arms would, I guess, come together. But he was really a strong guy. But he was kind of dressed like in a caveman outfit. But anyway, going forward, my number 7. My number seven is kind of like Friends. At the same time, Everybody Loves Raymond.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I love You know what I like Everybody Loves Raymond? Because the guy who played his father, I first saw him in Young Frankenstein, which is a hell of a funny movie.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I just thought that the father he's super cool. I think between him and the brother, they make the show. Rob and him, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
And my favorite,
I go kind of back and forth on that show, but yeah, I do like it though.
Which is my favorite? The one that Robert, I forgot what it was, that they were saying something, and it was he was an accident at birth or something. Do you remember which one I'm talking about? The mom says we had accidents, and then they look at Robert and he wasn't. That was hilarious. I mean, it's a good show. It is.
Yeah.
Okay, Theresa.
All right, Teresa, it's on you.
Okay. So my next one is, I'm so sorry if this is very Netflix heavy for you guys. Ozark. Does anyone watch that one?
Ozark. I never heard of that.
Another drug. Well, this is more money laundering. It's
okay.
It's fabulous. I'm trying to think. The main actor. I mean, he was a huge '80s actor. He was on that show in the '80s. Why can't I think of his name? And he's been in so many. He was in why am I blanking on him? Not Wedding Crashers. Is he Wedding Crashers? No. Oh God.
What's his name again?
Google this. In Ozark, the main character in Ozark. You've seen him in many.
Jason Bateman.
Oh, Jason Bateman. Yeah, thank you. It was slipping from my brain, but Jason Bateman plays this dad who goes from a very suburban lifestyle. It's very similar to Breaking Bad in a way, and becomes this boss, money laundering, working with the cartel, moves his family, out to this middle of nowhere place in the Ozarks. It's an actual place. And you see them start to transform into this family and the things that they do to stay together and to keep their lives together and basically their lives intact, because they have a gun to their head in every episode. But it's fabulous, and it's so well written, and it's just one of those shows that just continues to shock you with every season.
I got some new shows to binge then,
yeah.
I guess. All right, well, my number 7 is, and I was debating putting this higher too because I absolutely love it, is The Office, the American version.
Mm-hmm.
I have, like I said, I've probably seen this 6 or 7 times through, and about a week ago I started watching some of the Halloween and Christmas episodes, because those are just absolutely hilarious. And I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna have to start this over again and start from season 1. But I only kind of go until Michael Scott leaves, and then after that, the show kind of loses me a little bit. I don't know if that's the same for you.
Yeah, same. Without again, he makes the show for me. I mean, again, all the characters together are great, but.
He really ties everybody together on that show. He makes it. And once the last few seasons are funny, in their own way, but they're nothing compared to when Michael Scott's there. I mean, he is for me, he is the show. When he leaves, it was really traumatic. And I'll admit that I did tear up and, choke up a few times every time I see him leave. And, that airport scene, it is kind of, touchy there, but we'll move on from that.
I can tell you this much. I can't say I've never watched The Office. I've tried. Don't really find it that great of a show. I do respect it because James Spader was on it, but my son, oh my gosh, he watched it one day, almost 10 hours in the house. He's driving me nuts with it.
You know what? I have to admit, when I first watched it, when it first came out, I think I made it about 6 episodes and I didn't like it. And I revisited it for some reason a few years later, right around season 4, and I just fell in love with it then, and then I started watching it from the beginning, and the rest is history. So, all right, Eddie, let's go. Number 6. What do you got?
I got one show that I gotta tell you. I'm sure you guys are gonna say and agree with me. 2.5 Men.
Well, no.
Wait a second. Nobody
No.
else.
Next, Theresa. What do you?
2.5 Men. That's
Charlie Sheen.
Well, yeah, Charlie Sheen made that show. Actually,
I will sit. You know what, Theresa? I would sit and watch Sex in the City before I watch.
Saying something. I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, I will sit and watch Sex in the City before 2.5 Men.
Oh my God, the 2.5 Men. What? Yep. I mean, the little kid, the kid, and I thought it was a hilarious show. I'm surprised. First time I hear any negative input on it.
I've tried so many times, and I can't.
Don't get me wrong. The new one that came out once Charlie Sheen left, the show sucked. It was horrible. But while Charlie Sheen was there, the funny thing about it was that the guy who played his brother, I mean, he was. I guess Teresa's pretty quiet. Why?
I mean, it just didn't appeal to me as a show. I think at the time that show came on, like, you have to understand, I made a big transition from like cable network like shows to streaming and scripted, and I sort of started to get out of that comedy, like the whole clapping the audience, like those kind of one-liners. I don't know. I think as I grew up, my taste changed, and so yeah, like, I mean, I think I enjoyed those type of shows when like Seinfeld was on, like Friends and things like that. But I just think I outgrew that. And also combined with, no offense to Charlie Sheen, but he wasn't the most stand-up guy, if you know a little bit about his personal life. So I think.
Yeah, that was kind of going downhill.
Yeah, he was not doing so well. Yeah, I think at that point in time. And so for me, it was a bit tarnished. So. Not a fan. I'm sorry.
No, I agree. It's kind of like, I could see what you're saying, because like in The Office, I didn't like it. I watched it 1 or 2 times. I tried to, but I just didn't understand the comedy, in it. But anyway,
Theresa, what do you got for number 6?
My number 6. So sticking with The Office theme, and I think I mentioned this when I originally said The Office, but Ricky Gervais, who's the creator of the British Office, put out a really great show on Netflix this year. Actually, I think this was the 2nd season, called Afterlife. And it takes a look at a man who had just lost his wife to cancer, and the sort of will to live in every day. And it's really, really heart touching and warm. And even though he's hilariously sarcastic in everything he does, he ties the show with the characters in it, and you kind of root for him. Like, he's this sort of pathetic guy, and then you start to root for him, and you kind of want him to see his life through, literally, because he's pretty much suicidal the entire time. So it's an interesting take on like suicide and mental health and depression, and he does it so well that is why it's my number 6.
Okay, awesome. That's another show I've never heard of, but I'll have to.
I heard of it. I'll
have to look it up. So my number 6 is a show that when I started watching it, I absolutely hated it. And for some reason, again, I revisited it a little ways down the road, and it became one of my favorite shows, is The Big Bang Theory.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody out there know Big Bang Theory?
I know that I didn't watch it. It just didn't.
It really started to appeal to me because of just, all the comic book references and, everything, all the like the nerd stuff that I'm into. It really, it really kind of grew on me. So it was one of the shows that I actually, right before we were doing this podcast, I was sitting down and watching. So that's my number 6. Eddie, what do you got for number 5?
Okay. For number 5, It's a show on the History Channel. It's more like a documentary, but it's American Pickers.
Okay.
I spend hours watching it. It's a great show. I like the fact that the guy who is, the main character, the guy there, he kind of reminds me of my best friend. So it kind of feels like, me and him, you know what I mean? And
Nice.
I go a lot to flea markets used to before this Corona thing. But that's I would say my number 6. What's your, Theresa?
My number 6 is Killing Eve. Have you guys heard of it?
Are we on 6 or 5?
Oh, 5.
We're on 5.
We're on 5.
Yeah, 5.
I'm going with what Eddie said. Yeah, Killing Eve. Have either of you heard of it?
Never heard of it.
Great. It's actually on the BBC. So I hate to say this, but I'm kind of like influenced by British television, as you can tell. But Killing Eve. I don't know if you remember a show called Grey's Anatomy, which I'm sure somebody else who was not me would bring up as it being an amazing show. I have a lot of friends that absolutely love it, and it's very well known. But she was on Grey's Anatomy. Her name is Sandra Oh. Asian American. Anyway, she went on to do this show called Killing Eve, and it's on the BBC network, and it's about a female assassin. And so she works for the equivalent of like what we have for the FBI for the UK. And so she goes after this assassin, but she doesn't know she's female at the time, and so you're kind of uncovering all these clues, and then they finally meet up, and then she goes after Eve. So it's called Killing Eve. So it's very, very good.
That's another show I never heard of. I might have to check out. Then is that on Netflix?
It is on. Hulu.
Or you said that's on BBC,
I think
right?
It's on Hulu, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. All right. My number 5 is Star Trek: The Original Series. I think, Eddie, that was on your list as well, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was number 9 in my list because I haven't really gone back to it in a while. But it would probably be a little higher. I put number 9 because occasionally I'll watch it, but it's not something I'm into as much as I used to be in.
Star Trek. It's the original series. When I first started getting into Star Trek, I was watching it, and then it got me into the movies. And, I originally started with Next Generation, growing up with that. And then I watched it off and on, when I spent time over my grandmother's house. And I really never got into it, but it was just on TV. I watched it. The original series is what really got me, to be a Trekkie and into Star Trek and really looking into the movies and the whole, mythology or mythos of Star Trek and even the new movies as well. So that's my number 5. All right, number 4. What do you got, Eddie?
Okay, 4 is just like American Pickers, Pawn Stars, and with Rick Harris in Las Vegas. It's what show I'm talking about, the History Channel.
Yeah, I've seen it a few times. I don't really get into the what do they call it, like the reality type TV shows too much.
No, well, that particular one, that's I've watched it for hours and hours. So yeah, I like that. That would be my number 4. What's yours, Theresa?
I was just thinking I didn't pick reality shows on this list, but I could do a whole list of reality shows. But anyway. So my number 4 is Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I've never seen that one either.
Killing me.
Which is that one, Paul?
Okay. Seinfeld creator Larry David. Hilarious show, like pissing your pants. Like he's the most annoyingly insane person. He gets frustrated by everything, by everyone, and he tells them to their face. And it is comedy gold because it is improv. And so a lot of it is just them doing their thing, and it's just
what's the name again?
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, I heard of it.
I've been meaning to watch that for years, just because it is from Larry David. I love Seinfeld, and I've just never gotten around for some reason to watch it. So I'll have to add that to the list as well.
Joe, I'm just gonna send you I'll send you my list after this.
Yeah, really, because I haven't seen that.
What's your number 4, Joe?
All right, my number 4 is another cartoon that I just absolutely loved it. I've loved it from the beginning, and when they took it off the air and brought it back, it made me the happiest person in the world, which is Family Guy.
Okay.
I absolutely love Family Guy. I'm addicted to it. I'll be proud to say that. So I don't know if you guys watch Family Guy or have ever seen it.
I like, one of my favorites. It's kind of funny to say, but SpongeBob SquarePants.
Is that an episode of Family Guy?
Definitely.
SpongeBob? Or are you just saying you love SpongeBob?
No, that's it.
No. I'm saying I love the cartoon because he said cartoons, and I said one of my favorite old-time cartoons was Courage the Cowardly Dog. That's so hilarious.
I could do a whole list on just cartoons, but yeah, that's definitely one of my all-time favorite TV shows. And when I was deployed to Kosovo, I had this little CD or DVD player, and I brought all my Family Guys with me, and I watched them on repeat just daily. So it has always been with me wherever I've went in this world. So that'll stay at my number 4.
That's saying
What's that?
Something.
Oh yeah. So Eddie, what do you got for 3?
For 3, what I have is gonna make it. This is kind of funny. Now, I'm gonna say something. Well, first of all, no one told me that I can't, about the list, if it had to be reality shows or not. But I guess Theresa has her Netflix. I got the reality. Mm-hmm. And I like Oak Island.
What?
The Oak Island Treasure in the History Channel.
I've never seen that one.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Well, Oak Island is based on Leonard Nimoy's original 1970s In Search of series, where he told the story of an island off of Nova Scotia, where there was supposedly back, the McGillis, I think was the name of the family, 200-something years ago. They found like an embankment where it looked like there had been treasure, and they found a pulley in a tree, which was an oak tree, which is not really based on that island. Well, the whole thing is that they started digging, and every 10 feet they found some type of planks, like wooden planks. And it has been where I believe Theodore Roosevelt looked for that treasure. John Wayne. It's been the most sought after historically treasure that's cost 7 lives and millions of dollars to try to retrieve.
Has anybody ever found treasure up there or anything?
No, they're right now. They actually dug as far as 250-something feet in the dirt, and they've been going on for 8 seasons now. Some millionaires bought the island, and they're trying to get down to the bottom of the mystery. But I think, Joe, you would like it if you look into it.
It'd be funny if they actually found like a treasure.
No, they
chest.
haven't found. They just found gold, and
they open the treasure chest, and there's just an old note on there that says IOU or something. Yeah.
No, actually, what happened was that there was at 90 feet, they found a stone that said below here lies the treasure. I forget what it is. They're now saying that there could be connections to the Templars. But it's a great show. But anyway, that's my number 3. What's yours, Theresa?
4. I think 4.
Yeah, 4. That's right.
Oh, are we on 4? I thought it was 3. Okay.
No, we're on 3 now because Porn Stars was my.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, 3.
You're
okay.
Confusing us here, Joe.
So my number 3 is another Netflix one. I'm sorry, and pretty relevant to today, I guess. But Master of None. It is a story about. So, are you familiar with Aziz Ansari? And also, by the way, I am a huge I'm very into comedy and comedians, so that's probably where a lot of this is going. But when they do their own shows, I just end up watching them and loving them because I just find them hilarious. But Master of None is done by Aziz Ansari. He's an Indian or Pakistani American comedian.
Was he from
Yes,
Parks
he's
and
from
Rec?
Parks and Rec. I love Parks and Rec. I should have put Parks and Rec on here.
Yeah, that's definitely on my honorable mentions, but I've never heard the show. What's the show? What is the name of it again?
None. He only did 2 seasons, and it's kind of based loosely around, I think, his life in New York and living in New York, and and he's a big foodie, so it's centered around him going to one part of it is him going to Italy with his best friend, and them just eating pasta all day, and it's just hysterical. It's a fun easy watch, and it just is very, and also very relevant. He goes into like, you know, dating in New York, and just things that are, they just seem pretty normal, or I guess what were normal up until last year now. But I think it's just hard to make a show relatable as he did, so that's why it's my number 3.
Awesome. That's another one I'll have to add to the list. My number 3 is, I'm sure everyone is familiar with this, is the original Twilight Zone.
Yes. New Year's Eve.
I that is like, what's that?
New
Oh
Year's
yeah,
Eve
the marathon.
That's how I know the originals, and I have watched a few of those when I was much younger. But yes, I do know what you're talking about.
That is like I said, my 1 through 3 are pretty solids, and that is definitely a solid number 3 for me. I just, everything about all those shows, I've seen them so many times and read books on them, and just a great show. There's so much that you could say. You could do a whole podcast or show just on the Twilight Zone, but real quick, that is definitely my number 3.
I was going to say, how do you think it
moving
compares
on
to Black Mirror? And have you watched Black Mirror?
I've never heard of Black Mirror. Is that on Netflix?
Yeah, Black Mirror's on Netflix, but it's very Twilight Zone-y. I think you'll actually really like it.
Really? I'm gonna have to check that out then.
Yeah,
is that a newer show?
It's like episodes, just like Twilight Zone. Nothing to do with the other. They're all in their individual story, and they are trippy because there are things that like now you're like, that could really happen, and that's what makes them so scary.
I'll have to check that out then.
Well, I'll tell you what, the one she's talking about, my wife has seen it. I kind of saw one episode, but I think that the Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, and that show you were saying, what is it, Twilight? What is it?
Mine or his? Black Mirror?
Yeah.
Black Mirror.
Yours, Theresa. Yeah, Black Mirror. There's also another one that you guys probably never heard of, but it was done by the guy who did the original Frankenstein, Boris Karloff, and it was called The Veil. And it's similar to all the same, it has the same theme. They're all very good shows, including the Twilight Zone remake. There's one where the plane that's about to crash and the guy, which I think the remake was also pretty good, some of the shows there. But anyway, going on to number 2. Now, just like Breaking Bad breaks things, I'm going to break the tradition of the 10 best list here, because my number 2 consists of about 7 or 8 different ones. And I'll say why. When I have a chance, depending what day of the week, I watch this shows religiously. So I'll put this as number 2 because it consists of a couple, not just one, okay? Is that okay with you guys that I do that?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. For number 2, the first one that I would put obviously would be The Honeymooners, okay? Then I would have, from The Honeymooners, I would have The Monsters, which, like I said, each day of the week, depending what it is, I'll look up and watch a couple, okay? Then I'll have Bewitched, followed by Genie, because both Bewitched and Genie are hilarious. But Genie it's got to be the funniest show ever.
That sounds like an old Nick at Night lineup.
But except I do it, but not through old Nick. I do it through the YouTube thing. And then there's one that's very British-like that reminds me of Benny Hill and stuff back in the 70s. It was called Faulty Towers, and it was done in the 70s, and they only made with John Cleese. They only made about 12 episodes, but they're super funny. And together with that, we had the Twilight Zones, Mr. Ed, okay?
Oh, I love Mr. Ed.
The talking horse.
Yeah.
Hilarious. But, the 2 best for number 2 that I'm going to put the 2 on these, which, like I said, Genie is kind of, I would say 3. Genie, The Monsters, and The Guns of Will Sonnet and Branded.
I love Branded.
Okay, so I don't know, Theresa, you probably never heard of it. The Guns of Will Sonnet is a little old guy in his 80s, whatever, or 70s, that he's looking for his son. He's like a cowboy. He's a gunslinger. And he's going with his grandson, and they're looking for Will Sonnet. And everywhere he goes is like, the son is supposed to be the fastest gun of the West, which he's looking for, but he always says, but I'm better. You know what I'm saying? It's got the whole show is phenomenal. I think it lasted 3 seasons. You got to watch it in chronological order, though. But that's my number 2. Now go ahead,
Awesome.
Theresa. What's yours?
Okay. This would be my number 1 if not for the way this last season was done. But my number 2 is Game of Thrones.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And I know what you're saying about the
one.
last
It would
season.
be my number 1, but it's not, because everything was great up until this last season. And I don't want to ruin anything for your viewer.
I have that. Yeah, I have that in my honorable mention. I want to revisit the series again, and it would probably, depend. Like I said, depending on the week, would be in my top 10. But yeah, you're right. That last season, man. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, that sums it up.
I have nothing else to say about it other than that.
Absolutely. All right, so my number 2 is I have, man, this. I just love this show. Every time it comes on, I make sure I watch it, and it's Seinfeld. And I've Seinfeld started, it ran from 89 to 98, and you could watch season 1 of Seinfeld, and the jokes and everything, they are still funny. A lot of these TV shows, they age, and if you weren't really there in the year that they came out or shortly after, some of the jokes, are kind of old, but there's just something about Seinfeld where they're just still funny, and I could watch them just nonstop all the time.
Because it's a show about nothing. It's literally your everyday.
Absolutely.
That's kind of like Curb. You'll see if you start watching Curb. Like, there's a lot of Seinfeld in Curb.
I really think I am, since Larry David was a part of it. Now that I know that, I got to check that out. So, Eddie, what do you have? We got number 1, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm going to blast number 1 in a second. But in Seinfeld, what do you call the guy? Is it Seinfeld, the funny guy? So he's shaking.
Kramer.
Yeah, Kramer. I first saw Kramer in the 1980s film called Young Doctors in Love, where he played some hitman that was going to kill the Godfather from the mafia. If you guys never saw that movie, you should watch it because it's hilarious. And that's where I fell in love with Kramer as he's a comedian. He's a hell of a guy. He's funny as hell. But anyway, ready for this? I'm going to say one thing. My wife thinks I'm sick on this. My kids think I'm crazy. Yet my oldest daughter could not stop once I got her into the series. It's called The Blacklist.
I knew you were going to say that too. He's going to say The Blacklist.
Oh, okay. So, oh my God.
So you feel my pain then, Theresa, don't you?
Well, I've actually watched every season at least 3 or 4 times, like religiously. And when the show comes on, or it used to come on Thursday nights, I think it was Friday nights, I would watch it. Yeah, Friday nights. I would watch it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, all the way until Tuesday. It got me emotional. That show, I never liked James Spader that much prior to that show. Once that show came on, Elizabeth King and James Spader, they won my heart. Like, both of them, I was like, wow, man, these people are phenomenal. That's my number 1.
No surprise there, Eddie.
Theresa?
My number 1 is actually Schitt's Creek. And I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see that show, but it won a bunch of Emmys.
I love Schitt's Creek. I'm on season 4, so don't put any spoilers.
Just got released on Netflix, so I just finished it, and it's just an outstanding family comedy show, and I can't say enough about it and sing its praises.
Yeah, that is funny, man. I really like. Yeah, Schitt's Creek is good.
Well, you know something. The reason I haven't changed to any other show, even though Breaking Bad and the reason I haven't watched any is because how much time, like I said, you see all the shows I watch, how much time can you consume of your life over a show? And then you got to be, grinding your teeth until the next one comes on, so I think The Blacklist is good enough for me. So Joe, what's yours?
All right. This is my number 1 of all time. See if you could guess it.
Oh, Oh, Love and Marriage.
Love and
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Really? Ted Bundy.
Now, what made
Yep.
that be your number one show?
You know what? I grew up with watching Married with Children. The guy that plays Al Bundy, Ed O'Neill, he's originally from Youngstown, Ohio, where I'm from, and he actually went to school at Ursuline High School with my father. There was a 2-year difference there, but they actually knew each other in high school, and I guess maybe that might have kind of steered me toward that show. But I grew up watching that, and I don't know, I absolutely love everything about it. It is just there's nothing to it but just dumb comedy. It's absolutely hilarious.
Being young, I was gonna
but,
say being younger at the time, I used to love the girl in it.
Christina Applegate.
Not the wife, the daughter.
Christina Applegate, yeah,
the daughter.
Oh yeah, she was absolutely funny. She played.
Pretty. She was a very pretty girl.
Yeah, and each one of them had their own like weird personalities. Al Bundy, he was the shoe salesman who was always had the bad luck. Peggy, she spent all the money. Bud, he was always chasing the girls, and Kelly, she was always the airhead. And then they always had feuds with their neighbors and everything, and everybody in the town. And there was nothing to it. It was just funny, and it was just about this family who just had the worst luck and how they stuck together through the worst luck. And I love it. That is my number one, and always will be. It won't move from there. So
it's so funny that you just said what you said about how each of them have their own like personality and their own traits, and it really, and we were just talking about Schitt's Creek, like I do kind of see a mirror of families, even though they're in the worst of times, sticking it out and being a family together. So maybe that's something to say.
Yeah, that's definitely kind of how Schitt's Creek is. They have their own personalities. They're down on their luck, and they're usually against somebody in the city, but they stick together no matter what, even through their own little feuds and everything.
Old in a weird way.
Absolutely, and I think Family Guy definitely wasn't the first to do it, but I think that at the time, when Fox was becoming a lot bigger, Married with Children really pushed the envelope for what was accepted on TV. As in, showing women with skimpy clothing, showing rock bands, showing just crudeness. There wasn't really that much like that on TV, and they were really pushing it at Fox because Fox was kind of newer, and they wanted to compete with all these other like NBC, CBS, other networks. So they wanted to push the envelope, and it's funny because a lot of their they just had all these just excellent writers, both men and women, and they slam both sides. They slam men, they slam women, they slam religion, politics. There was nobody safe on that show.
Yeah, but that's kind of like Three's Company. I think it pushed the envelope in its time too.
Absolutely.
And
all right,
so
we got our top 10 there. So what is some honorable mentions? Eddie, what do you got for some honorable mentions that might make your top 10?
You know what? There were shows that I used to love watching that I didn't put in there because I don't get to watch them, but I have bought them on DVDs. It's Sanford and Son. Three's Company was one of them. One of my favorite shows from growing up was also the $6 Million Man with Steve Austin, which, of course, back in the 70s, what kid didn't want to be an astronaut and be as popular and date like Farrah Fawcett Majors and the other girl from The Fall Guy? I forgot her name. But anyway, he was lucky enough to have had the two most beautiful women in Hollywood. Oh, yeah, Heather Thomas. So he actually married Farrah Fawcett Majors and had, Heather Thomas. So the $6 Million Man went to 9 seasons. One of my favorite was when they had the Bigfoot episode, and that was when Andre the Giant played Bigfoot there. It was kind of scary as a kid when, because it was just like cool, But other than that, we have so many shows, and the more you say, and you hear about Netflix and what Theresa's saying, I see a lot of those shows kind of being remade in a different format.
Absolutely.
That's what I gotta say. Well, Theresa, what are your saves?
I guess one of the honorable
final
mentions I
takes.
didn't mention was Shameless. You guys familiar with Shameless?
I've never seen Shameless. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
I heard of it too.
And sticking it out, and in the south side of Chicago, and it's hilarious and it's great. So that was another one of my honorable mentions. Oh, The Affair, which I really like. That's another Showtime one. About this guy it's based in Montauk, New York, and he goes there for a vacation, ends up falling in love with someone that's not his wife. And what's the interesting thing about this show is that you watch the one episode from two people's perspectives. So you see the guy who's having the affair, cheating on his wife, and then you see the girl that he's cheating with, but you see their perspectives. And in those perspectives, you don't really know what the truth is, because you see her wearing something different. And then you see how she sees herself, but you see how he sees herself. So it's all about perspectives. And so I thought it was a really interesting show. So that's another honorable one. Yeah.
Awesome. So for what I have on my honorable mentions, I'll make it quick because we are running down on time here. As I have, of course, Game of Thrones, and like we discussed, the last season kind of messes it, for that. But I want to revisit it. Another one, Eddie, you'll probably enjoy this one, the Andy Griffith Show.
It was funny, but I could be honest with you. I watch it seldomly growing up. The guy is funny. The guy who plays the funny guy, what's his name?
Barney Fife.
Andy. What's his name?
Are you talking about Barney Fife?
Yeah, Barney Fife. He made the show, but it could be boring at times. Okay. I didn't really could say I liked it that much.
And then I also have Parks and Recreations, which that's another one I've watched several times, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious. Yeah, that could be on my top 10, depending on the day. And then also The Outer Limits, the original series, which is another one that I haven't watched it in years, so I need to revisit it again. But it would probably be on my definitely on my top 10. Next time. So we got about 4 minutes left here, 3 minutes left. So
one thing I'm going to say real quick that you guys forgot, the Creep Show.
No, that was a movie, wasn't it?
No, Creep. Well, yeah, they had it weekly also, though. There was a weekly show as well.
Okay. So let's go with final.
Unless I'm wrong now. Now you got me thinking. Go ahead.
I think it was just a movie. I know Shudder recently did Creep Show TV show. I think they're on their just the first season so far, but let's go with some final thoughts real quick, about 30 seconds. Theresa, what do you got?
The lists? Oh, I think.
Sure.
I know you're putting the spot.
We're putting you on the spot.
I think I think we had some ones that we felt we watched that were in common. But I do think I think a lot of what's interesting about this, because since we didn't put it to a specific genre or category or reality or non-reality or scripted or network, whatever, we have such a diverse list. But at the end of the day, I think we found some commonalities amongst why we liked certain shows and sort of the common thread through them, even like I said, what's old is new. So that was a revelation.
Absolutely. And we there's definitely some diversity on these lists, and we'll have to revisit this topic again and see how these lists, maybe a year from now, and see how these lists compare to each other. But Theresa, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. You're welcome back.
Had a lot of fun.
Anytime. Awesome. And everybody out there, head over to houseoftheunusual.com, join the forum, sign up, meet some like-minded people on there, network with some people, check out the blogs. Also check out House of the Unusual on YouTube. There's some great videos on there, and you could also check us out, House of the Unusual, on Instagram. So there's many ways to connect with us and find some like-minded people that enjoy some strange stuff sometimes, in some mail order stuff, comics, movies, and all that good stuff. So we are signing off for this episode. Theresa, again, thank you so much. Eddie, as always.
One thing I'm going to say before really close, Theresa, send us the list, because now you have me curious in some of those shows you mentioned.
Absolutely.
All right. Having said that, thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Theresa, again for being on.
Good night.
You're the best.
All right. Good night.